Thank you for listening to the Speaking with Confidence podcast. Give us a review to tell everyone why you love the podcast. You can also download, like, and share the podcast with friends. Be sure to visit formingforpublicspeaking.com and sign up for Forming for Public Speaking course. It's a step-by-step system to help you become the confident and powerful speaker you've always wanted to be. Welcome to Speaking with Confidence, a podcast that's here to help you unlock the power of effective public speaking. I'm your host, Tim Newman, and I'm excited to take you on a journey to become a better public speaker. I really appreciate each and every one of our listeners, and thank you for your support. If each of you could do one thing for me, it would be to give us a 5-star review and share the podcast with someone close to you who would benefit from listening. Today's guest is Brian Fleming, a retired U.S. Army sergeant whose story of resilience and triumph is nothing short of extraordinary. Brian served for 4 years in the United States Army as an infantry team leader, where he faced some of the most harrowing experiences imaginable. His service included 2 near-death encounters, first with an IED and then with a suicide bomber attacker in Kandahar, Afghanistan on July 24th, 2006. Brian's bravery and sacrifice earned him a Purple Heart, and he spent 14 months at Brooke Army Medical Center enduring painful burn treatments, reconstructive surgery, and a brain injury rehabilitation. Brian's journey from a wounded warrior to a global speaker and author is a testament of his resilience and determination. Inspired by the events of 9/11, he joined the military to serve his country, and his experiences in the battlefield profoundly shaped his life and career choices. Over the past 16 years, Brian has spoken to over 500,000 people around the world. He's authored 4 books and been featured on nearly every major news network in America. His mission is to show other trauma survivors how to move forward in life and discover more healing through the power of storytelling. His podcast, Podgasm, helps people communicate effectively and clearly. Brian, thank you for your service and welcome to the show, bud.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You know, when I hear your story, it's amazing that, number one, you know, you've overcome that when, you know, a lot of our veterans are really, really struggling. And I really do think, you know, this is kind of a side thing here. I really think we need to do a much better job in taking care of our veterans, you know, especially the ones that have experienced some of the things that you've experienced.
Yeah, I agree. It's a shifty world out here.
Well, let's go ahead and set the table for our listeners. You joined the Army right out of high school, and you were stationed in one of the best and prettiest locations in the country at Fort Polk and Leesville, Louisiana. So let's let you pick it up from there and kind of tell your story.
Yeah, like you said, I joined the Army straight out of high school as infantry in 2003. So we were already obviously in Afghanistan. 9/11 was still very fresh, and everybody knew we had to do something. Taliban was launching attacks on our country from that place, and so we had to go and kick their ass in their own backyard. And we did that for a long time. Unfortunately, 20 years later, I won't get into the politics of how that thing fell apart, but at least at the time I was in, everybody was on board, and we very much believed in what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
I had friends whose families died in New York City on 9/11, so that really hit close to home for me. And I just felt like, it was a couple things. One, it was I had studied so hard. I did really good in high school. I had a 4.0. And the first week of my senior year, I went from wanting to go to college and become a doctor to wanting to take a couple of years off because I was so fried in my brain. I didn't want to just jump into college, but I also wanted to, as most eight, or at least in where I come from, most 18-year-old kids, they want to shoot some machine guns and blow some stuff up because that's fun. And I got a little more than I asked for, but I also put myself in that position, and I take, my whole portion of responsibility for how my life turned out. But yeah, so I joined his infantry during a time of war. Some teachers were mad at me. They said, "Well, we're at war, don't you? Why are you doing this?" And I
That's
thought,
why
yeah,
you do it.
that's
That's
kind of
kind
the
of the point,
point.
right?
I don't know. There are some
I don't
people
know.
who say, yeah, there are some people who say never fight. Violence is never the answer. And I don't really hang out with them because even though violence, I believe, should always be the absolute last answer, you
Right.
shouldn't have to do it. Sometimes it is the only solution
Yes.
to punch the reset button, no pun intended, in a situation. And redeem respect and civility. And so, this was one, on a macro level, a world scale. This was one of those situations. You can't just sit back and let a bully keep bullying you and hurting your family. You
Hmm.
have to do something. And so you have to be proactive and you have to go start being violent against the bully. And so that's pretty much what it was. So I did my first year in South Korea with the Second Infantry Division. Got back, was stationed, as you said, at Fort Polk, Louisiana, which I thought was kind of weird because I was assigned to the 10th Mountain Division, which is a light infantry mountain warfare unit.
Right.
And they started a 4th Brigade in the swamps of Louisiana. And I thought my orders were wrong. And so I took them back and I said, these orders are wrong. 10th Mountain's in New York. They go, no, Private Fleming, you're wrong. We're starting a new 4th Brigade of the 10th Mountain Division at Fort Polk, Louisiana. And that's the first time I considered the real definition of the phrase military
Intelligence.
intelligence.
Right.
And so, yeah. And then they sent me to Afghanistan, which is mostly mountains, to fight a war for almost a year.
And it's amazing sometimes. It really is. And, my brother was stationed at Fort Polk for a while, and he retired down there.
I'm
And,
sorry.
I know you and I talked about it a little bit, and God bless him. He loves it there. I mean, it's out in the middle of nowhere, so he doesn't have anybody bothering him. So that's the
That's
that,
that's the plus. And I will say this. I really hated the climate and the weather, but the people and the food were
oh,
great.
phenomenal. Absolutely.
Yeah. I still have friends who live there. Yeah.
It's okay to move. It,
It's absolutely okay to move.
we give you permission. It really is okay. Uh, so you deployed from Fort Polk to Afghanistan and pick up your story from there, because this is where I think people you talk about that the whole point was to go and help fight and win this war, and now you're actually in the war. You're in the fight. What happens next?
Yeah, so we arrive in Kandahar at Kandahar Airfield. I believe it's about March 15th, 16th, middle of March '06, and we are there. We go about an hour and a half north of there to a small kind of village called Kalat, where Fob Lagman was. That's where I was. We operated out of while we were there. And about a month later, after arriving on April 18th of 2006, my vehicle ran over a double stack of anti-tank mines that were buried in the road in the Arghandab River Valley. And so we were in up armored Humvees at that point, double stack of anti-tank mines. They blew up my vehicle, set it on fire, completely destroyed it. We were all inside when it happened, obviously, and we all got out. Nobody died, thankfully. 2 guys were injured, but thankfully returned to duty a month later. And I didn't sustain any known physical injuries at that point. I wasn't bleeding or anything like that, so I didn't get medevaced out. So I stayed on the mission, but I did notice I started forgetting things and
Hmm.
having headaches every day. And I wouldn't know this until about a year later. These were signs of a traumatic brain injury from the
Right.
concussion of the blast that
Right.
went off underneath our seats. And so stayed on the mission. Some people say, "Wow, you must have gotten the weekend off after that, right?"
No.
No, we were stranded out there for 2 or 3 days, and then we were given a follow-on mission on the way back to our base because, hey, you're already out there, might as well do something while you're out there. And so, hey, that's what we signed up for, though. That's exactly what we were there for, and we had no problem with it.
Right. So you get everybody back. Obviously, you lose the Humvee, um, and you're out on another mission. And what happens?
Yeah, nothing really happened on that one. We just kind of drove
No,
way
no,
out of the way.
no. As you move forward to the second incident
Oh,
with the
yeah,
suicide bomber.
yeah. So I had this. This is a few months later on July 24th of 2006. I had this idea that I wanted to reclass my job from infantry to EOD, which is explosive ordnance disposal. They're the bomb squad. Why I wanted to do this, I have no idea. The things you want to do when you're 20, I don't know. But anyway, I had this P3, it's what it's called on my medical record, which means I was physically unfit for active duty, which is funny because I'd
Okay.
been running up and down mountains
Right.
fighting Taliban for 5 months at that point. And so I had to go down to Kandahar, get reevaluated so I could get that removed from my records so I could continue the process of changing my job. Well, we get 2 miles from the front gate to Kandahar Airfield, which was our final destination. and a minivan, which I was in the front passenger seat of the lead vehicle. I was a truck commander of about a 15 vehicle convoy, and this white minivan somehow got right up next to me and slammed into my door and exploded. The whole entire van blew up, and it was being driven by a suicide bomber. So he blew up basically from me to this wall, and which is about arm's length away from me, and I had no idea what happened. I woke up laying face down in a ditch on the side of Highway 1 in Kandahar. My helmet had been blown off my head. My face was a full face and neck second degree burn, third-degree burns on some of the back of my neck and both my hands, full thickness third degree. Had no idea where I was, didn't know what happened. My first thought when I woke up, because I didn't remember anything happening, I don't recall an explosion taking place. My first thought was, why would I go to sleep here? Kind of funny, because I didn't remember laying down there. I thought, how did I get here?
Right.
And so I did sort of a push up, and I got to my feet, and I thought, well, maybe we're in a firefight. Well, nobody's shooting anybody, so that was a plus. And so, well, and we're not fighting. What's going on? And then I thought, shit, where's my weapon? I couldn't find my weapon. It was still in the vehicle. And in a war zone, your weapon's like your arm. You don't
Right.
go anywhere without it. You don't go eat. You don't go to the bathroom. You don't sleep without it. You sleep with it in your arms with you. So yeah, I had no idea what was going on there. My driver, thankfully, was a medic, a combat medic who performed his job flawlessly, taking care of me and my gunner, who were both injured. Called in the 9 line medevac, had the bird there to evacuate us, medevac within about 30 minutes, which is pretty good time. And then I spent the next 14 months at Brooke Army Medical Center, a year and 2 months at that hospital, burn treatment, reconstructive surgery, and occupational physical therapy, things like that, for getting my body and my brain back
Hmm.
from the injuries.
And that's the tough part. I'll spare the listeners some of the details that you've shared in the past with what happens to burn victims and what they have to do and the
Oh, I
and
can tell them that if they want to hear it.
that, go ahead.
Yeah, what they do is they do a process called debridement, which I did not know they had to do, and I'm thankful my medic didn't tell me. But the night I got to Brooke Army Medical Center, that was actually the worst part of the whole injury, because they took me into the shower room and they took all my clothes off and they're spraying me down with water. And they said, the head nurse looked at me and he said, "Hey, Sergeant Fleming, we're gonna do this as quickly as possible, so it'll be as painless as possible." And I didn't know what he meant by that, but it didn't sound good. And it was at that point, him and two or three other nurses, they all pulled out razor blades and they had to start shaving and tearing and ripping the burned, charred skin off and bloody skin off of my hands, face, and neck while I was still awake, because I would have died of infection if they didn't get my wounds clean. And they don't put you out for it because they're afraid you might go into a coma if they have to do it multiple times. So they keep you awake for it. And so you're basically being filleted alive. And it's the most god awful experience of my life. And I had friends who were burned way worse than me. I can't even begin to imagine how much worse their experience was. But you know what? Those that military medical community, they kept me alive, and I'm well today
Mhm.
because of them, and I'm so grateful.
It's amazing with the technology that we have. Like you said, if these types of things happened, really even into the '80s, we didn't have some of this technology and some of the speed and things of that nature. Um, you know, to me, it's obviously a good thing that we're taking care and we're keeping people alive. But on the downside, some of the mental issues, the PTSD and brain injuries, I think we need to do a better job of caring for them and um, figuring out how to treat them better than what we're doing as well. Because as you said, you took a blast and that compression injury that we didn't even really think about back in the early 2000s. Now we're starting to think about that a little bit better as well.
Yeah, because to your point, that's a very valid point, because we're surviving things that as human beings we never could have survived back in Vietnam or even
Hmm.
the 80s, like you said. We weren't there medically with technology. Well, now we are, and so where we used to just die, we're surviving, and there's effects on that survival end of it. And so it's just it's an evolution in healthcare and
Hmm.
survival, and I think the human being and the human condition being pushed forward and learning how to continue to adapt and overcome to things that present themselves to us that we didn't expect, which is actually a concept of life we all need to embrace. I
Absolutely.
mean, things
Hmm.
are going to change. You're not going to expect them. And you can't just lay down and die and quit. You have to have the mindset that life is going to screw you over. Like, don't expect it to, but expect it to. Like, it's like hope for the best, pray for the, pray, what is it? Hope for the best, but prepare for the
Pray for the
worst.
worst, right?
But life, if you think things coming against you or having obstacles means you did something wrong, you have the wrong mindset.
Hmm.
Life is a roller coaster. By default, it's up and down. It's four seasons. There's a cold, dank winter where everything's dead and maybe you don't want to be around. But then there's spring and summer and beautiful fall weather, which we're having up in northern Michigan right now. And nothing stays the same forever. It wouldn't be natural for it to. The seasons always change in life. But yeah, you have to have that mindset that, hey, all right, this happened. It is what it is. We need to handle it how we need. And where are we going next?
Right. And anything that's worth having or worth doing is hard and difficult. You have to have challenges. You have to be able to fight through whatever it is. There's many different ways to look at it. There's the 10,000 repetition, 10,000 hours, whatever it is. But what if you want to be good at something, and if you want to progress at something, it's going to take work. It's going to be frustrating, and you just have to learn how to fight through it.
Here's the amazing thing, though. Like, I just came from the gym. I actually rushed home to get here because I'm 12 minutes from the gym. So I rushed home from the gym. But when I was in the gym, I was doing hard, long sets today. I mean, I was grunting out the last five and just shaking. That's not comfortable.
Right.
But my muscles get bigger and stronger because I willingly do that.
Right.
Be comfortable doing uncomfortable things. If you can master that, you can literally go anywhere and do anything. You cannot be stopped if you become comfortable doing uncomfortable things. Whether it's if you're a guy, maybe like me, maybe it's talking to women or talking to somebody who, it could be a potential business partner or going to the gym or eating right. I mean, if you can just master that one little thing, be comfortable with doing things that are uncomfortable. I mean, if you do anything for like 21 days, it becomes a habit. So if you can just make yourself really uncomfortable for like a week or two, you're going to see a change in your life, and it feels good.
Absolutely.
Not only that though, but you feel amazing. You feel the progress. Whereas if you just hate the things that come at you that they don't work out, you're just playing defense the whole time, and you feel like the world's against you when it's not.
Yeah, and that kind of is kind of leading me into the second point here. You're in Brook Army Medical Center, and you're going through rehab, inpatient, outpatient, and somebody enters your life. Your first mentor enters your life. How important is it for young professionals or young people to understand it's okay to ask for help? It's okay to get a mentor to help you, because we can't do big things without other people's help, right? How important is
Yeah.
that?
Oh, it's everything. It's the game changer. If you don't have a coach or a mentor or a community, if you don't have people helping you along, you're probably a loser, and you're probably going to become and keep being one, and you're going to get worse. I mean, look at Michael Jordan. Look at Tiger Woods, best in their sports in the history of the sport. Some of these guys, they all had coaches. Because
Mhm.
here's the thing. Now you say, "Oh, their coach wasn't as good at golf or basketball as Tiger Woods or Michael Jordan," right? Doesn't matter. Here's the thing. Here's the thing that a coach can do, or a mentor. They can look down on your battlefield from their airplane, so to speak, and they can see things on your battlefield that you can't see because you have a very one dimensional. When I was in
Mhm.
Afghanistan, we were boots on the ground. We lived in the mountains, and we could only see things. I couldn't see over the ridge in front of me. I didn't know if there's 100 Taliban over there. But you know what? We have an A-10 Warthog flying over, or an Apache gunship, or a Black Hawk flying over and saying, "Hey, there's about 80 enemy personnel over there. Stay put. Don't go over that ridge." Uh, and so that's very, very good to know, given we
Mhm.
were a 17-man platoon.
Right.
That saved us, a lot of ammo and maybe some worse. And so coaches, mentors, they can see things you can't, and that's one of the biggest advantages there. And somebody who doesn't want that, well, one, you just have an ego problem. But the best people who end up pushing through and shining and becoming amazing, they've had one or many mentors come into their lives. And I, like you said, to your point, I attribute my recovery, my quick, very expedient recovery, to this individual who came into my life, and I didn't plan on meeting him.
So talk about that process and how that really started your journey as to where you are today, and the speaking that you do, and the multiple podcasts that you've had, and the help that you're giving to veterans and businesses all over the world.
Yeah, this guy who's a Vietnam veteran, his name's Dave Reaver. He came to Brooke Army Medical Center while I was a patient there, and he was horribly wounded in Vietnam, burned by white phosphorus, took half his body off, half his face, and he survived it. Well, he came to talk to me and about 30 other guys who've been blown up and shot up in Iraq and Afghanistan who were recovering. And I realized he couldn't talk about his story without making us laugh hysterically. It was awesome. I mean, that whole military humor thing, like
Hmm.
it was like every other line was a punchline. The guy is just amazing. But it was also a really healing message. He knew how to communicate it well.
Right.
And so that really endeared me. Like that really like caught my attention. And I talked to him afterwards and we became friends. He ended up a month later inviting me to go to one of his events in Manhattan, Kansas, right outside Fort Riley, and it was a patriotic rally he was speaking at, and so he flew me there to be a part of it, and what I didn't know he was going to do is he pulled me up on stage in the middle of his
Oh,
speech,
wow.
and I was
Okay.
still I was still in burn bandages on my hands, my face was still like pinkish red from the burns. This was only about 5 or 6 months after the injury, and so very fresh still, and he said, "Hey, tell him what happened. Take 2 minutes." So I said something probably like, "Hey, I'm Brian. I got blown up. I guess I'm still here for a reason. Go for it." Probably the worst motivational speech ever. But what happened when I stepped off stage is what changed my life. And what happened was there was a young lady there about my age, about 22, 23, mid 20s. She just walked up to me, didn't even tell me her name, and said, "Hey, gro- growing up, I was raped and molested. I was abused. And then throughout my teenage years as well, then my boyfriend, he was abusive and we broke up recently. And 2 weeks ago, I tried to kill myself, but I failed."
Wow.
And instantly, I was like, "Oh my God, like, are you okay? Like, what can I do to help?" And I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to say to her. But then she said this. She goes, Brian, she goes, but if you can survive all that, talking about Afghanistan, she goes, I think I can get through this. And boom,
That's amazing.
something came out of me that I didn't know was there. And what I realized later it was thanks to Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor. He wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning, which is literally one of the best books ever written. And you can read it in an afternoon and just ponder it for a lifetime. But he was a psychiatrist, he was a Holocaust survivor. And he said, in some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. In some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. In that moment, when I realized I didn't have any lesson for her or any advice, but her just hearing about me making it
Hmm.
through my thing gave her hope that she's not going to go kill herself. I found a sense of meaning in my suffering. I found something new to live for. I wanted to find more people like her. And that's been the fire that's been the burning desire that's fueled everything I've done for the past 17 years as a professional speaker. I never meant to do this.
That's that's an amazing story. I mean, when you step off the stage looking like that, and you hear another tragic story, and what your message has done for her and what her message has done for you, in like I said, in an instance, it's life changing. And I think back to, and again, I don't want to downgrade or dismiss anybody's pain and suffering, because we all go through things. But like you said, if you can get through what you got through, and she can get through what she got through, you know, my dog ate my homework, or I didn't get an interview for this job. Those things are I wouldn't even consider minor. Those, you just keep on rolling. It just, don't even
Yeah,
let those. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I encourage people when to think of it more this way. Like my trauma or somebody like me, my trauma is not different than your, or my trauma is not worse than yours. It's just different.
Different.
It's just different because some people say, "Well, gosh, Brian, I was, abused sexually as a kid and all this," and but me, man, I was never blown up by a suicide bomber. And I go, "Dear God, are you kidding? I would have. I mean, I don't want what you had either, but don't downplay the effects of what you've been through. I'd
Right.
rather go back to Afghanistan and get blasted again than go through that."
Exactly.
So, what people need to understand, regardless of the situation, whether it's a trauma or it's you didn't get the job or something didn't work out, my story at least is not worse than yours. It's just different because here's the thing. You might look at the explosion and the injury and go, "Wow, that's definitely worse." Okay, but here's the thing. Here's where people really relate to each other. It's the after effects.
Yes.
It's what comes out of those things. And let's say, I mean, for somebody who is trying to get a job, or maybe they have a family, and those bills are coming up and they don't have the money, that's starting to get traumatic. That is very stressful, and that really affects you. Now, what level of trauma? I don't know, but I can tell you, when you have things due and people rely on you and you don't have what you need, and then the thing you were betting on doesn't work out, that is a big deal. That, and I would never downplay that. But
Exactly.
the thing is, I'll tell you the biggest thing that I realized through this, and this is going to apply to all the people listening too. I learned how to turn my situation into value. And value, when you add value to the world, real value, you'll never be broke. You'll never be without friends. You'll never be without people wanting to work with you. Because when you offer value, that's the only thing people pay money for. That's what most people are
Hmm.
attracted to. And value always comes in the form of solving a problem people have. And the bigger the problem you solve, the more money they're willing to pay for it, or the more they're willing to commit and give you or exchange with you or work with you to help you fix that problem. So if somebody's looking for trying to get a job or work with somebody, get into something, find out the big problems they have and then become the person who's so good at solving that they can't tell you no.
Right.
That right there, because the only reason, I mean, people didn't hire me just cuz, oh, this guy got blown up, let's put him on our stage and hope he doesn't say anything stupid. Oh, and it's an election year. So that's highly probable, you know, but the but you see, the thing is, here's the thing. They put me on their stages because they have something they want their people to understand that will produce an outcome that organization wants. And they see me as a chess piece on that board that if they move me here on their chessboard, it's going to help them accomplish that mission. I'm something, a piece that they can use to stand on to help get them where they're trying to go. So I'm solving a problem. If their people are lacking motivation, well, you hear a story like mine and you go, well, damn, maybe my life isn't so bad. Or yes, it is, but he got through and so will I. That can take people a long way because I didn't know this, but when I first heard my mentor speak, when I didn't know him, I thought the same thing. Wow, he got through that. I can get through this. I didn't know I was thinking it, but that's exactly what it
Hmm.
was.
And let's take that just a step further. When you're hired for a job, you're hired for a reason because you do have that value. You have the skills, or you have whatever that organization needs to fill that gap, to solve that problem, what have you. So when they ask for your opinion, they want to actually hear that opinion.
Your
You,
job at a company is to produce more value monetarily, money wise, what it equates to, than what they're paying you.
mhm.
If it's not, then you're on the chopping block because they can't just pay everybody more than they're making the company. The company couldn't exist. So that's the mindset you have to have. I have to give more value than they're paying me. If they're paying me, let's say like $10,000 to speak, however that equates in value, if I motivate their people or teach them some techniques of communication that helps each of their people maybe improve their sales rate by, I don't know, let's just be modest, a half a percent. Well, if you have 2,000 people doing that, and a half a percent increase for 2,000 people over the course of a next quarter or year, whatever those numbers already are, and that's a percentage that it's raised for each of those, that might be another $2 million to the company.
Right.
And then I walk away going, you should have paid me a lot more for my speech.
Exactly. Exactly. But again, it's getting outside of that imposter syndrome, getting out, stepping away from the that inner voice that that we are telling ourselves. Nobody else is telling us that we're not good enough. Nobody else is telling us that we shouldn't be there. It's us doing that to ourselves.
Oh
You know,
yeah, the voice in your
getting
head's your
over
worst
that.
enemy.
It's horrible sometimes.
Nobody will be worse to you than the enemy in your own head.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to yeah, I call that propaganda. And you have
That's
to look
good.
out you have to look out for that propaganda that you
Mm-hmm.
tell yourself. Yeah, and the thing about it, it can be hard to recognize because you're so close to it because it's you. That but you when you once you start to recognize it and you start seeing those patterns, you instantly sometimes I'll just say things out loud and just like just turn the narrative. And it's yeah, and sometimes it's really profane, but I don't care. It's like I got to get out of that.
Yeah,
And the busier I am and the more I'm doing things, the less that tends to creep up on me.
yeah, yeah. You know, when sometimes, when I'm up talking, and there'll be a pause or whatever, and inside my head I'm talking to myself, and sometimes I'll just chuckle, and I tell people, if I chuckle, it means either I said something stupid to myself or I told myself a joke. It's okay to laugh at me when I do that, but a lot of times, truth be told, now the truth is really going to come out. I'm having negative thoughts in my head, and I catch myself saying, "No, we're not going that route. We're going to get back to doing we're going to get back to being awesome, right?" Um, and again, it's okay to have those things, but we can't act on them. We have to push past it and drive on.
Well, the thing is, those thoughts are probably only half truths at best anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just as easy to think better, good thoughts about yourself. And it's not egotistical and arrogant. But here's the thing, if you have a 50-50 chance of doing well or doing bad at something, or having good talk or bad talk in your head, and it's a 50-50 thing, well, one doesn't favor the other. There's no advantage or one or the other. Why not just choose the good one? We're taught so much in
Right.
society, like, oh, don't think good about yourself, especially if you grew up like abusively religious like I did. Oh, that's pride. Don't think good of yourself. Everyone wants to point out the bad in you. Like, no, like you are pretty fucking amazing. You
Mm-hmm.
are way smarter than you think you are. You are strong. You can get through more than you think you can. I'm pretty great, and it's not an egotistical thing. It's like, it's just the truth. I've been through a lot of shit in my life and I
Mm-hmm.
can endure a lot and I don't want to have to, but I've been through so much that I look at things I go through now and it's like, well, it's not that or that other thing or that other thing. And it's okay to think you're pretty amazing because you're I don't know who said this, but you're not as bad as you think everyone says you are, and you're not as good as they all say you are. You're probably
Right.
somewhere in between. But if you can be bad or good talk to yourself, just use the good
Choose
talk
good.
and
Choose a good
don't be a
talk.
jerk
Right.
about it. Yeah, don't be
Exactly.
egotistical, don't be a jerk, but like favor the positive talk, favor the good thoughts.
So in your speaking career and journey, have you ever had any times where you've really messed up or been embarrassed? And if so, how do you overcome that in the moment?
Yeah, I've told a couple jokes that totally bombed. I thought, oh, that'll be funny, and it was crickets, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, fuck. So I mean, one of the ways I just off the cuff, I was like, I literally went like this on stage. I'm like, all right, boy, take that joke out of the bit. Don't do that one again. And then they laughed at that because it's like, that's another thing, like with speaking and talking, being outgoing or getting results. I used to care so much that everything was perfect and that everyone liked it.
Mm,
And it doesn't matter how good you are. Some people are going to like it. Some are going to hate you for no reason. You're not going to do anything perfect. And if you did it perfectly perfect, nobody relates to that because
no, they
nobody
don't.
is that.
Right.
And so, like, one of the biggest things in my life, I am so free mentally to say what I want, do what I want. I don't care if people like me. I just turned 40 3 weeks ago. And I don't know, man, you might agree with this, but there's something about 40 where you just don't care anymore
Right.
about so many things, or you realize, like, you know what, all these people I have favored their opinions for so long, they're just as dumb or dumber than me, and it doesn't
Hmm.
matter how old they are. Like, it's like, I mean, I say, hey, respect your elders, sure, but let's be honest, who came up with that rule?
Right.
Old people, right?
Old
So
people.
it's
Right.
like, yeah, yeah, so it's old people, right? Elders. So it's like, we have this idea in our mind that other people like know so much more than we do and they're so much better. Nobody's actually that much better than you,
Mm,
and
right.
nobody really has a handle on this life. And so, respectfully and productively move forward, but stop giving a shit so much about what someone's going to think. Unless it's a really important person that you need to impress for a reason. Other than that, that's not most people. You'll be
or
so
or, or some
free.
or somebody that you actually care about, somebody that's in your inner circle, right? Um,
Absolutely.
you know, your significant other, brothers, sisters, immediate family. Obviously, everybody's a little bit different there, but and I think I also think this is generational. If you look at younger people, right? Um, they are so worried about what everybody thinks about them. I mean, they've got their face in their phone, and they worry about what some person who they've never met, have no idea who this individual is, could be a bot, could be somebody, from Russia or China, talking
Doesn't
about,
even have a profile picture.
right, talking about, what they said or what picture that they put up, and their entire life is now in the toilet because of that. I'm like, I've been like this, maybe 40. I don't know. I really don't care. I mean,
I
again,
wish
I care
I
about
I
the
wish
people that are in my circle, and that's about it.
Yeah, I wish I could take that whole trust me, you don't have to care so much. You can tell someone that
Hmm.
and they don't get it till they get it. I wish
Right.
I could inject that into every 20-year-old
Hmm.
and they would just be like, "Oh my god, I get it." But I had to get it. Like
Hmm.
I heard it a bunch. I had to get it myself. And the people I cared most about their opinion or what they would think about what I do, it was literally I could count that these people on less than one hand or half of one hand, and it was people that who I highly valued their opinion about me, and they had invested a lot into my life. But even that, they're human beings, and I had to learn to let go of that. And there are ways I did that, but I had to learn to
Hmm.
let go of that because it was a mental prison for me. And at the end of the day, they're not perfect either, and they
Right.
went their own way too. And it's like I wish them best. I love them. I'll do anything for them, but I'm gonna be me. And if that doesn't work for them, then hey, it's like I have a new audience out there that's waiting for me. And so, but yeah,
Yeah. It's a phenomenon. I go back to when I was a kid. I'm 50. I'm 56 now. We didn't have social
congratulations.
media. Yeah, it's hard. It's mental math. Um, but we didn't have social media. I remember we had the phone where you had to actually put your finger in and do the dial, um,
Rotary phone,
rotary
yeah,
phones. And so if somebody said something to you at school you didn't like, for guys, we just punch each other in the nose and be done with it. And we'd be friends after. And we didn't have any of this other
yeah.
stuff. So, I think, that's the bad side of social media, and being so
Here,
worried about those other things. But social media also has a very good and positive side, and we really need to teach the young people the balance of that. Um,
well, here's the thing about social media. This is it's like a cheat code for bullies too, though.
yes.
I've never understood bullying, cyberbullying, because I've had people write me stupid messages, and you know what I do? I just go click this little button that says block, and they literally don't exist anymore in this world. Like
Right.
I never see them again. I never think about them. You can just delete people and you never see them again anywhere or hear of them. It's great. Like
Right.
when we were growing up, the bully in school, like you said something about someone, they want to meet you in the parking lot after school, and you actually had to like
Show up.
justify what you said. Now
Hmm.
you can just click a block button. I don't understand cyberbullying on that because maybe it's just my extreme life experience. But if I can just click a block button, a
Right.
digital blue button, and I never have to deal with somebody again, that's easy. That's a cheat code. Like
Exactly.
block them and don't think, move on.
Exactly. Exactly. And you know, so when I talk to young people, uh, you, trying to get them to get out of their phone, I ask them, where do they get their information from? Do they read news? Do they read articles? Do they read books? No, nobody reads anymore. I mean, truly reads. And I heard you say something a number of years ago on another podcast that you do a ton of reading. How important
Yeah.
is reading in becoming a better professional, a better human, um, all those things. How important is reading, and how does that actually advance you in life?
Yeah, reading's really important. And the thing is, I read things I like and also that are valuable for me and can help me get ahead in life and be better in ways I want to be better. I hated reading in school because all the
Mhm.
crap they wanted me to read, I didn't like. I wasn't interested. The Scarlet Letter, for God's sake, that burn that thing already. Like, ah. But hey, you get out and then you're reading this book, by a guy like Alex Hormozy or something, and it's like, oh, this is how this guy became worth $100 million, or that one
Mhm.
guy who got out of prison and he's like worth hundreds of millions now. Uh, Crazy. It's like, I want to know that guy's mindset. I want to know like what he did or what things like that. So it's very important, and that's reading books. I mean, people read a lot. They read social media, which isn't always productive. But here's my perspective. Also, at this point in my life, anything you read is going to be biased in some way,
Yes.
especially if it's like a magazine or if it's something on the news, social media. Everything is biased. To me at this point, everything's propaganda on both and all sides. Is people presenting information from their bias, their perspective, and yes, also sometimes their agenda and the outcome they're trying to get. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. You go, okay, this is what this says. Unless it's factual, scientific, like, hey, the earth is not flat. Okay. Like, yeah, I know I'm going to get hate for that. Too bad. I don't care. See, I don't care. This is me not caring. It's like, I don't care. It's not. Like, so whatever, be delusional somewhere else. But reading is important because it makes you a better person. You understand things better. You absorb information in a different way. It's my understanding.
Mhm.
I've been told when you read. And what I do is when I read through things, I'm like I'm underlining things, I'm marking things in the margins, and then when I go back, I can flip through a book. All the books I read about 30 books a year. Every book I go back through, I can see all the marks and the things that jumped out at me. And I instead of rereading the whole thing, I can go back and I can see what those hot points were.
Right.
And sometimes it's a piece of information that, oh, by the way, I just sort of needed right now with what I'm going through or trying to do. And it's just there, it presents itself.
And even if something is, if we again are being intellectually honest and understand that everything is biased, if we read something that makes us question, wow, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, we should also go and find something on the other side of that and see what that says, and then try and make up our own mind, as opposed to just buying whatever somebody else is trying to sell.
Yeah,
It's
that's
that
called
critical thinking.
yeah, that's called being a well-rounded and
Yes.
educated, intelligent individual,
Yeah.
which unfortunately is not something that a lot of institutions push nowadays. In fact, I don't quote this person often, but there's a quote that says, "What great luck for us leaders that men do not think." And do you know who said that? It was a man named Adolf Hitler.
Oh my god.
And he was absolutely right. And being political season, or whether it is or isn't,
It,
you
it's
can
it,
see this at
right.
work.
Mhm.
You can say anything and people just rally behind it. And you question them two or three levels deep and they can't explain why they agree. And
Mhm.
then they get mad because you're questioning them or they don't want to be wrong. They don't understand why they believe or think what they do. But the truth is, they've been taught that they're supposed to think and believe certain things. And then they're taught not to question it.
Yes.
And so when somebody presents that, that's the danger zone. We don't go there. Well, dumb people don't go there.
Right.
Smart, intelligent, critically thinking people who change the world go there.
Right.
But understandably, that can be scary, especially if it's something of like a religious nature. Religion, I mean, is the king of this. Unfortunately, it's like don't question that, or you're going to burn in hell forever. What for questioning, for asking, like wondering, like that's the dumbest shit in the world to me. Like I think if there's a loving God, he wants us to try to figure him out, and he gave us minds to be able to do
Right.
so for a reason. That's just me. But like I don't think I'm wrong for being curious. And I don't
No.
think you are either. And you should ask questions.
Yeah, that's why I'm not a good employee. So, I mean, even
Same.
when I was a kid, I'm always asking questions. This doesn't make sense. Why are we doing it like this? Why are we raking rocks? Why do I have to rake this sand? Why do I have to do things that don't make sense? What's the
Yeah.
purpose? Why can't we do it
It's
like
like
this?
it's like
What?
it's like the guy in the army who gets in trouble. So he's out there with a vacuum cleaner in the parking lot in the pouring rain. And everyone's like, what's he doing out there? It's like he's in trouble. Like it serves no purpose. We know.
Right,
It makes a
right.
funny picture.
You know, but I get called to the what I call the principal's office all the time. Well, I'm just asking. I'm just trying to figure this out. It doesn't make sense. You want me to do this? We're not we're not doing that. I'm not doing stupid things this year. I've already decided. So
Well, and one thing, if you're at a job or within an organization, sometimes, well, obviously learn the way they do it because they do it that way for a reason. It's probably the best practices they know. But then you have to understand too, there are innovators who will disrupt, and the system doesn't like that until it understands that person can actually benefit and help the system do better. But on top of that, you might have a boss or a supervisor who's very insecure if you're sort of better than them at their role, and if they allow you to do something that will make you look good, they're afraid sometimes it'll make them look bad. And what is their job going to get replaced by you now? And there's this whole ego and fear thing. One of many situations that happens. But if you're the best at something, or you're good at something, you're a good thinker, and you're developing ideas, and you're a critical thinker, and you know things like that. Don't ever shut that down for
never.
anybody.
Right.
Never, never. I mean, the person who's trying to keep you down, you might be the CEO of that company one day, and they're going to work for you 5 or 10 levels under you.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, do your thing.
And always look for people who don't think like that. Right. I mean, I want people smarter than me. I want to work with people smarter than me. I want to hire people smarter than me. I want to be able to help people reach that full potential. And that's what, you need to look for leaders that are not ego driven, that are not worried about somebody being better than them. That's part of being a good leader, is helping people be better. I want my kids better than me, right? I want my
Yeah,
grandkids better, you know, whatever it is. And if you find yourself in those positions, yeah, you have to do what you have to do. But look, go back to what we talked about earlier: finding a mentor, finding somebody who can help you develop skills and help um, you get better whatever you're doing, and provide that value that you need to be providing. So
yeah, and if you do have an idea, let's say you're within a company or an organization, and it's a little disruptive, but it's an idea you think could help that company do better. Just, I mean, say something like, "Hey, I know we do it this way. I'm thinking up ways that actually might be done better, that could help the company more and cost the company less." You attach anything with those words, now you got their attention. By the way, um, I just have an idea I'd like to present, just to see if it might help the company do better. Is that something you'd be open to? Now that's called a "Hey, stupid" question, because nobody's going to say no. Hey, I might be able to help your company do better. I have an idea. Would you like to hear it? So you present it from a place of value, not "these people are so dumb the way they do it. Nobody listens to me." Like there's a reason nobody listens to you if that's your mindset. But
exactly,
always, like I said in the beginning of this episode, always come from a place of value, and that comes in solving a problem. And if you're in an organization, if you're one of the people who either helps the company make money or save money, you are the most invaluable asset to that company. So if you're presenting things that can help them either save or make more, good leadership's going to be open to that. And if you present it in a respectful way and just say, "Hey, I think this could be better. Let's punch some holes in it. Maybe I'm not seeing something." But and then if it does work, they're going to go, "Wow, this person's really good at this. Like that was incredible. Like we need to move them over here, or we need to promote them." And then you're getting what you want in life.
exactly, exactly. So one of the things that you do is you help people get up and tell their story. How do you do that? What's the process? Because I think, especially young people, they don't spend really any time at all thinking about who they are. I mean, truly who they are, what they truly think, what their values and morals are. So how do you pull that out of people and get them to get up and be able to tell that story?
Yeah, it kind of alludes to what I've already said. It all starts with a problem. Look at your life and look at what problems you can solve in the world. Because how you get people to care about what you say is attaching what you say to a problem they have. So, for example, for years I've done, uh, marriage training for the military. These men and women come home from war. Things are different with them, different with their spouse. Their spouse has been running the house for a year or more.
Oh,
Now
and by the
suddenly,
But by the way, those are heroes as well, and I think the spouses and the families get kind of lost in the shuffle. They're sacrificing just as much as as a service member.
Yeah, and so yeah, absolutely. And they're probably the most overlooked demographic in that whole military
Hmm.
community. But to my point, what I've been married almost 19 years now, happily. I got married 3 months before I deployed to
Oh
Afghanistan.
my god!
So what we're doing, my wife and I, Jamie, it obviously works. So I have not that my situation or advice is going to work for everybody. But if I made it through all that, the deployment, the injury, the recovery, and now 19 years later, we're still going strong, I talk to them and I say to the coordinator, hey, you know what? Combat wounded in Afghanistan, got married 3 months before I deployed. We're still together 19 years later. I'd love to come talk to your service members when they get home from deployment about how they can keep their families together and have more fulfilling, successful marriages, which is going to help your unit cohesion be stronger because when your home life is together, it makes going to work every day a lot easier. And no, I mean, that's basically they can't tell me no unless there's a logistical or a budget thing
Right.
because I'm exactly what they're looking for. I made myself the solution to a problem I know they have, and I worded it well. I know exactly what they're dealing with. So think about yourself if you're hearing me. What problem can you solve in the world? Maybe what have you overcome personally? Or what do you know a lot about? Or even if you haven't, like what do you know that can help solve a problem? You don't have to be the world's best solution. You just have to be a solution that can help people move or an organization move forward at least one step in the right direction. Everything nobody cares about your story until you attach and marry your story to a problem they have. Now, now this thing is like turned up. Now this thing becomes powerful.
Yeah, it really does. And again, to be able to do that, you have to know who you are. You have to spend some time thinking about that and how that solution can help people. And there's like I said, you don't have to be the best at it because if you don't have to be the only message because again, if there was only one message that worked for everybody, we wouldn't have you know experts. Let's just John. We wouldn't have John Maxwell and oh now I lost. I mean, how many people have written communication books? Very
Yeah,
good. I mean,
exactly.
you, you know
Yeah.
you know it, it's
Well, and
it's it's how that message hits you or individuals and what actually resonates.
Well, and here's the great thing too. You and I can speak on the same topic, or me and
Hmm.
you and five other people.
Right.
But let's say, let's say, let's say there's a lady who, a woman who's in tech and she's an executive and she has her perspective. Well, I'm a military guy and I have my perspective and life experience. So we can both be saying good things, but the thing about not having to be the only person is that there are certain people in the audience or listening or watching whatever medium you're using. There are certain people in your audience who will relate to you
Yes.
more than someone else, and there's others who will relate to someone else better than they relate to you because they just feel a personal relation to you more, maybe a similar background or your communication style or your life experience. People resonate with different people differently. That's why you can have 10 people talk on the same topic and it's all equally helpful. It's actually more helpful for the audience because everyone in the audience isn't only going to relate to just one speaker only.
Exactly. And when you talked all over the world, and a lot of times it's the same message, and the military does a lot of good things. They do a lot of things that don't make sense, like your P3, unfit for duty, but you're serving in war. Eh, right.
Yeah.
uh, I, whatever. Yeah, that's all you can say. But war is fought, battles are fought over a five paragraph op order, and depending on who you're talking to, outs whether it's in the military or somewhere else, changing some things, wording or terminology, you can still get the same message across. Talk a little bit about how you actually communicate with different audiences, based on that whole philosophy.
Yeah, when I plan my speeches and I talk to audiences or I do personal or business coaching, whenever I do that for people, I literally have a version of a 5 paragraph op order that I created myself, and I adapted it to real life. And I use those key elements that are within an op order to plan out the mission, the speech, the plan for somebody trying to do something and get something in life and go somewhere and accomplish something. Those core concepts, they've been tested in war for decades, hundreds of years, these concepts, and they work. And so when you adapt them to your life, to what you're doing, you have a lot better shot at succeeding and not feeling lost in the middle when things start blowing up all around you. You know, you have a contingency plan, you have a backup. You know, if something goes wrong, you get on the battlefield and suddenly it's not the way you were told it looks. You know, there's not 3 buildings and 12 enemy. There's 19 buildings and there's like 150. Well, you can't treat that the same. You can't just go, well, here's the mission. We're doing it this way. No, the battlefield changed. Now you have to change now. You don't have time to not change, and you don't have time. You have to think fast and adapt. That happens. But the way I say it, everyone's on a battlefield with whatever you're trying to do in life. You're trying to get something. There's an enemy or multiple enemies in your way. Those things cause you to think propaganda, like we talked about, the negative self talk that if it can defeat you before you even try, then it's already won. And then you need to have allies, people who can help you, mentors, coaches, listening to stuff like this podcast. You want to have some sort of very simply spelled out plan that has a few major steps in it that can help you see your way across the minefield. Step here, don't step here instead. And then you also have to know, what does success specifically look like? What does
Mm.
victory look like when you accomplish a mission? But also, what does defeat look like? What does it look like if you don't get the job, if you don't get the contract, if you don't get whatever? You know, there's a consequence for not winning.
Yes.
And you need to be very clear on how that's going to affect you and what that's going to be. Because when your motivation dies, which it will, motivation's a roller coaster. When your motivation goes down, well, that whole mental image of what your life is going to be like if you don't win is very motivating. Instead of pushing, it sort of pulls you through, because no matter what, all you know is you don't want this certain thing. I mean, if you can't make your marriage work, look, that's all right, that happens. But you got about 15 years of child support and maybe a lifetime of alimony, even if you remarry someone else in 5 or 10 years. Um,
Hmm.
is there something you really can't work through? Like, is it really a deal breaker? Sometimes it is. But when you look, I mean, in Afghanistan, it was like, all right, if we lose a battle, they're going to videotape sawing our heads off with dull rocks and dull knives and then put it on YouTube and on the internet. And now my family might see that. That's the consequence of losing a battle in a war zone. Not only that, but you die and they torture you to death. So that's a pretty good incentive to win, even when it hurts and you're fucking tired and you're out of energy. You can't even hardly stand up and run. You're so tired, and the enemy's wearing a bed sheet and a pair of Crocs, and you're wearing 80 pounds of armor. You got ammo, you got your pack, and you're 10,000 feet in elevation. It's 130 degrees down at sea level, or at 5,000 feet, and all this, and it's like, oh, I just want to quit. Okay, well, you know the consequence, and it'll make you keep going if you're very clear on that outcome you do not want to happen. So that's
Right.
basically what I tell people. And then what's your next step? What's your first next step? Whenever you get lost and tired and confused, what's your next first step right now? It's like, if I didn't want to go to the gym this morning, it's all right, put your shoes on. If I put my shoes on, all right, grab the keys. Then I can go to the gym. If I just get my shoes on, I'm good. You know, I'm more disciplined than that by now, but I didn't used to be.
Well, but sometimes putting the shoes on is the work. I mean, like you said, you know, making that decision, you know, having that inner dialogue. Just put your damn shoes on and do what you're supposed to do. Um, that's like you said, that's the key. Knowing it and
Yeah,
doing it.
I have an inner drill sergeant,
Hmm.
and if I skip something, it's like, oh, it's like I make myself work harder if I skip something. That's why I don't cheat, because they're like, it's like, oh, you wanna go have a glass of beer? Okay, that's fine, but do 50 push-ups first
There
for
you go.
each one. Well, then it's like, Oh, 3 glasses of beer? I know
All
I
right,
don't want, but
I'm doing 1,000 push-ups today. Here we go.
yeah. Yeah. And so it's like, all right, I don't want to do 150 push-ups tonight. I just don't feel like it. So I'll have one and I'll knock out 50 before I do
Right,
it. I don't drink
right.
it and I'll do it after I do. No, you won't. You do it
Yeah.
before you drink it. And then you
And
feel like you
not
earned it
during
and you
either.
feel good.
That's awesome. What one more thing? Other thing, you know, we talked and you made me laugh with something. You said there are two superpowers in the world. Tell everybody what those two superpowers are.
I'm trying to remember.
There's Brazilian jiu-jitsu and communication.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and communication. Yeah. Definitely two superpowers. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I did that for a number of years. And it can teach a smaller person to take down big people and choke them and win in an altercation, um, when otherwise they wouldn't really stand a chance. It is a genuine superpower. And so, as far as self defense and being able to handle yourself, take care of yourself, definitely a good skill to have. And communication is also a superpower because we live in a world full of lots of confusing messages. I call it fog, like the fog of war. It's confusing. Things get confusing. And if you can say what you do in a clear and compelling way to the right people who want to hear what you're saying, you can be bad at this, obviously, and still become president. We've seen this happen many times on both sides of the political
Mhm.
aisle. Of course, their speeches are written for them. So, they have people like me that write their speeches for them, by the way. Most of them aren't that good. But um, your ability to communicate effectively and clearly is a superpower. To say less, but to say more in it and to do it in a way that's impactful and effective, there's nothing you can't do. There's no job you probably can't get if you know how to communicate effectively and do it well. And it is the only it's probably for me, I'm not good at everything. But if it's clarifying and creating a compelling and clear message that's focused on a group of people aimed at what they want to do and what they want to avoid, I can write and speak those messages all day long, and I do, because it all comes down to who you're talking to and that whole kind of battlefield concept that I talked about a few minutes ago about what they're going through. You speak to what people are going through, you do it the right way, you do it effectively,
Mhm.
and then it's like, wow, it's like God spoke to you and to tell me, or it's like you've been reading my mail. It's like, however you want to say it. Um, I've done my homework on you. That's what it is. And I actually
Exactly.
have solutions that can actually help you get what you want and avoid what you don't want. So I had to become good at communicating so I could get people's attention. So I could
Mm.
give them what I know they need that
Right.
can help them. Because if your wrapping paper is garbage, no one's going to want it. You put something in a Walmart bag, it could be the same item, and you put it in a Nordstrom bag. Now it's like the whole perceived
Everybody got
value
at
is
it.
different.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
it's how you present it, and you present through words. So yeah, Brazilian jiu-jitsu and communicating clearly, those are two amazing superpowers. If you get both of those, you're kind of a badass, I think.
Well, you've got it because you're pretty good at both. So, where
But
can people?
I've had a lot of people teach me those things for years, and I've been choked out a lot, and I've choked a lot of people. So, like, I've written bad copy, and I've written great copy, that some that made no sales, some that made a lot of sales. So it's like, it's you win and lose and you learn. It's the
Mhm.
whole process. Yeah.
And you keep trying, you keep getting better. That's
That is the
the
process of success. You
yes.
try and you fuck it up sometimes, and you keep going back and doing it again and getting better each time. And before you know it, you're amazing at this thing because you've
Mhm.
got it fine tuned and honed in.
Right. Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
Brian, thank you so much. Where can people find you and work with you?
Yeah, if you want to see what I do, with public speaking and my professional speaking, just go to blownupguy.com. It's real easy to remember because I'm a guy who got blown up. There are thousands of guys like me who got blown up in the war, but I'm just the guy who bought blownupguy.com like a year after I got blown up, and I don't look blown up anymore. But it's easy to remember because nobody can spell Brian or Fleming, and most adults in America write the word brain instead of Brian, which is sad. But they remember you're that guy who got blown up, so it's blownupguy.com. You can email me there as well if you want to work with me or do any coaching, things like that, or book me for your event.
Well, Brian, thank you so much. thank you for your service. I really enjoyed the conversation, and take care of your family, and we'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks a lot, Tim.
Be sure to visit speakingwithconfidencepodcast.com to join our growing community and register for the Formula for Public Speaking course. Always remember, your voice has the power to change the world. Take care. We'll see you next time.
I hope you enjoyed the latest episode of Speaking with Confidence. Give us a review to tell everyone why you love the podcast. You can also download, like, and share the podcast with friends. Be sure to visit formulaforpublicspeaking.com and sign up for the Formula for Public Speaking course. It's a step-by-step system to help you become the confident and powerful speaker you've always wanted to be. We'll see you next time. Take care.